War Commander Vexthai stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the stars. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights, and his 4 arms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. The Zethran Empire had ruled this part of space for over 3,000 years. They had never met anyone who could challenge them. "Commander," his aide called out, "we have detected new ships in the Kepler 442 system." Vexthai turned his large head toward the screen. His yellow eyes studied the data that appeared. The ships were strange-looking. They were long and blocky, with crude metal hulls that looked like they were put together by children. Smoke came from the back of some ships, which made him laugh. What kind of primitive species still burns fuel for space travel? He asked his crew. The other Zethrans on the bridge laughed with him. Their own ships moved through space, using clean energy from their star cores. They had not used burning fuel for thousands of years. "Sir, we are picking up radio signals from the ships," the communications officer said. "They call themselves humans. They say they are here to build a new home on the 3rd planet." Vexthai looked at the planet on his screen. It was a nice world with blue oceans and green land. The Zethran Empire had marked it for future use, but had not bothered to claim it yet. Now these humans wanted to take it. "Show me more about these humans," he ordered. The screens filled with images that the Zethrans had stolen from human communications. Vexthai saw the humans themselves first. They were small creatures with pink skin and only 2 arms. They looked weak and soft. Their ships were the same way, ugly and basic. But then the screen showed human ground forces, and Vexthai started laughing so hard that tears came to his eyes. The humans had vehicles that moved on metal tracks, like ancient machines. The biggest ones were called tanks, and they looked like metal boxes with long tubes sticking out the front. "Look at this." Vexthai pointed at the screen. "They call these M1 Abrams tanks their best ground weapons. They roll on the dirt like bugs. They burn fuel and shoot simple metal bullets." His aide looked at the data. "Sir, these tanks weigh 60 tons and can move 40 miles per hour on flat ground. Their main gun fires a shell that weighs 10 pounds. 60 tons, Vexthai laughed harder. "Our hover tanks weigh only 20 tons and can fly at 200 miles per hour. Their guns shoot burning light that can cut through any metal. These human machines are like toys from our ancient past." The bridge crew gathered around to look at more images of human military equipment. They saw human soldiers wearing heavy cloth uniforms and carrying simple guns that shot metal bullets. They saw aircraft that used spinning blades to fly instead of proper anti-gravity systems. "Commander," the weapons officer said, "should we destroy their ships now? It would be easy." Vexthai thought about this. The Zethran Empire always showed mercy to primitive species. They would offer them a chance to surrender and become servants of the Empire. If they refused, then the Empire would take what it wanted by force. "No," he said. "Send them a message first. Tell them they must leave this system at once. The planet belongs to the Zethran Empire." The message was sent through space to the human ships. It took several minutes for a reply to come back. When it did, Vexthai could not believe what he heard. "This is Admiral Chun of the United Earth Colonial Fleet," a human voice said through the speakers. "We do not recognize your claim to this system. Our colonists are already on the planet's surface, and they will not leave. If you want this world, you will have to take it from us." The bridge fell silent. No one had ever spoken to the Zethran Empire this way. Lesser species always bowed down when they saw the power of Zethran warships. "Sir," the aide whispered, "perhaps they do not understand how powerful we are. Should we show them our weapons?" Vexthai studied the human ships again. There were 12 of them, all small and ugly. His single warship could destroy them all in minutes. But something about the human response bothered him. They sounded so sure of themselves, even though they clearly had much weaker technology. "Scan their ships again," he ordered. "Look for hidden weapons or shields." The scanning beams swept over the human fleet. The results showed exactly what they expected. Basic metal hulls, simple engines, and primitive weapons. No energy shields, no plasma cannons, no anti-gravity systems. "Sir, they are exactly as weak as they appear," the scanning officer reported. "Their largest weapons fire metal shells, just like their ground tanks. Very primitive." Vexthai made his decision. He would teach these humans a lesson they would never forget. But he would not simply destroy their ships. That would be too quick and easy. He would show the galaxy what happened when primitive species tried to challenge the Zethran Empire. "Send another message to the humans," he commanded. "Tell them, I challenge their best ground forces to battle. If they win, we will leave this system. If we win, they must surrender and become our servants." "Sir," his aide asked, "why not just destroy them from space?" "Because I want every species in this part of space to see what happens when someone challenges us. We will broadcast the battle to all worlds. They will see our hover tanks destroy their primitive metal boxes, and they will know the power of the Zethran Empire." The challenge was sent to the humans. While they waited for a reply, Vexthai called up more images of human tanks on his screen. The M1 Abrams looked so old and simple compared to Zethran war machines. It had thick metal armor instead of energy shields. It moved on tracks instead of flying. Its gun fired solid shells instead of burning plasma. "Commander," the communications officer called out, "the humans have replied. They accept your challenge." "Of course they do," Vexthai said with a smile. "These primitive creatures are too stupid to know when they are beaten. How many of their tanks do they want to bring?" "They say they will bring 10 of their M1 Abrams. Tanks to face our forces. 10 against 5 of our hover tanks," Vexthai decided. "We will give them double the numbers and still crush them easily. Make sure all of our allies can watch the battle. I want the whole galaxy to see how we deal with primitive species who do not know their place." As his crew prepared for the battle, Vexthai looked at the images of human tanks one more time. Soon, these ugly metal boxes would be burning piles of scrap on the planet's surface. The humans would learn that their primitive technology was no match for the advanced science of the Zethran Empire. He had no idea how wrong he was about to be. Colonel Sarah Martinez stood in the command center of the human colony on Kepler 442b. Around her, dozens of screens showed information about the alien ships hanging in space above them. The aliens called themselves Zethrans, and they wanted the humans to leave this world. "Ma'am," Sergeant Johnson said, "the alien commander is asking to speak with you directly." Sarah nodded and walked to the main communication screen. A strange alien face appeared. Purple skin, yellow eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. This was War Commander Vexthai of the Zethran Empire. "Human Commander," Vexthai said in perfect English, "I have a proposal for you. Your people are brave but foolish. You cannot defeat the Zethran Empire with your primitive weapons." "What kind of proposal?" Sarah asked. She kept her voice calm and strong, even though her heart was beating fast. "The alien ships above them could destroy the colony in minutes." "A test of strength," Vexthai replied. "I will bring 5 of my best hover tanks to the surface. You may bring 10 of your best ground vehicles to face them. If you win, my fleet will leave this system and never return. If I win, your people will surrender and serve the Zethran Empire." Sarah looked at the other officers around her. Major Williams, her second in command, shook his head slightly. He thought it was a trap. But Captain Torres, who led their tank, Cruz, had a different look in his eyes. He was studying the alien on the screen, like a hunter watching his prey. "Why would you offer us such generous terms?" Sarah asked. Vexthai laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Because I want the galaxy to watch. This battle will be broadcast to every world in this sector. When they see our hover tanks destroy your primitive machines, no other species will dare to challenge the Zethran Empire." "You seem very confident," Sarah said. "I have seen your tanks, human. Your M1 Abrams machines crawl on tracks like insects. They burn fuel like ancient vehicles from our past. Our hover tanks fly through the air at great speed. They have energy shields that can stop any weapon. Their plasma cannons can melt through any armor." Sarah looked at Captain Torres again. He was smiling now, and she knew what that meant. Torres had spent 20 years fighting in Earth's final wars. He had driven M1 Abrams tanks through battles that would have broken lesser men. When Torres smiled like that, it meant he saw something the enemy did not. "Where do you want to fight?" Sarah asked. "The Central Valley, 5 kilometers south of your main colony," Vexthai replied. "It is flat ground with good sightlines. Perfect for both our forces to show their true power." "When?" "Tomorrow at dawn, your local time. That will give both of us time to prepare, and it will allow the galaxy to watch during prime viewing hours." Sarah made her decision. "We accept your challenge." Vexthai's smile grew wider. "Excellent. Bring your best tanks, human. I want to destroy your finest warriors so that your defeat will be complete." The communication ended, and the command center fell silent. Finally, Major Williams spoke up. "Colonel, this is madness. Their technology is clearly superior to ours. Those hover tanks can fly and have energy shields. Our tanks are sitting ducks." "Maybe," Sarah said. "Torres, what do you think?" Captain Torres stepped forward. He was a short, thick man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of tank combat. "Ma'am, with respect to Major Williams, I think this alien commander is making a big mistake." "How so?" "He thinks he knows what our tanks can do because he's seen some old footage. But the M1A3 Abrams we have here aren't the same tanks from 20 years ago. They've been upgraded with systems he's never seen before." Torres walked to us wall screen and brought up technical drawings of their tanks. "Our armor isn't just steel anymore. It's composite materials with reactive plating. Our guns don't just fire regular shells. We have depleted uranium penetrators and experimental railed-in rounds. Our targeting computers can track and hit flying targets at 5 kilometers. "But what about their energy shields?" Williams asked. "Energy. Shields work great against energy weapons," Torres replied. "But they've never been tested against kinetic rounds moving at hypersonic speeds. A 10-pound tungsten dart hitting at Mach 6 might go right through their shields like they weren't there." Sarah studied the battle plans on the screen. "How many tanks do we have ready for combat?" 12 M1A3 South are fully operational," Torres said. "We can pick the best 10 and make sure they're loaded with our most advanced ammunition." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "And Torres, I want you in the lead tank." "Yes, ma'am. It will be my pleasure." As her officers left to prepare for battle, Sarah stayed in the command center. She looked out the window at the colony they had built over. The past 6 months, families lived here now. Children played in the streets. Gardens grew in the alien soil. These people had left Earth to build a new life, and now aliens wanted to take it all away. Her communication officer approached. "Colonel, we're getting messages from Earth. Word of the challenge has already spread. The whole colonial fleet is watching." "Any orders from Earth Command?" "Admiral Chun sends his personal message. Show them what human engineers can build." Sarah smiled at that. The M1A3 Abrams tanks were the pride of human military engineering. They had been designed and built by the best minds on Earth, tested in the harshest conditions, and improved through decades of combat experience. That evening, Sarah visited the tank crews as they prepared their vehicles. The machines looked huge and powerful under the artificial lights. Their thick armor gleamed, and their long guns pointed toward the sky like fingers of death. "How are we looking, Torres?" she asked. "Perfect, ma'am. Each tank is loaded with 20 rounds of our best ammunition. Targeting computers are calibrated for maximum accuracy. Reactive armor is armed and ready. These machines are the finest weapons humanity has ever built." Sarah climbed up onto Torres's tank and looked inside. The crew compartment was full of screens and controls that would have seemed like magic to tank crews from 50 years ago. But to these men, it was all familiar technology. "Nervous?" she asked the gunner, a young man named Private Chun. "No, ma'am," Chun replied. "I've trained on this system for 3 years. I can hit a flying target at maximum range without missing." "What about you, driver?" she asked. "These tracks can handle any terrain," the driver said. "And our engine can push 70 tons at full speed without breaking a sweat." As Sarah walked among the tanks, she felt a growing confidence. These were not the primitive machines the aliens thought they were. Every system had been refined through years of engineering and combat testing. Every crew member was a professional who had trained for exactly this kind of battle. The next morning, Sarah stood on a hill overlooking the Central Valley. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with orange and red light. In the distance, she could see 5 alien hover tanks approaching. They moved smoothly through the air, their hulls gleaming silver and blue. Behind her, 10 M1A3 Abrams tanks moved into position. They looked heavy and solid compared to the flying alien machines. But Sarah knew the truth. These tanks were the products of humanity's greatest talent. They were built to fight, built to win, and built to survive. The galaxy was watching. It was time to show them what humans could do. The morning air was cool and still as both forces prepared for battle. On one side of the Central Valley, 5 Zethran hover tanks floated 3 meters above the ground like deadly ghosts. Their hulls were smooth and curved, made from materials that seemed to shimmer and change color in the light. Blue energy crackled around their weapons as plasma. Cannons charged up for battle. War Commander Vex Thigh stood in the command center of his lead hover tank, watching the human forces through his advanced sensors. The tank crews were still making final checks on their primitive machines. To his eyes, they looked like mechanics working on ancient vehicles in a museum. "Commander," his gunner said, "should we begin the attack?" "Not yet," Vex Thigh replied. "I want the galaxy to see this clearly. Let them get a good look at human technology before we destroy it." The Zethran hover tanks were works of art compared to the human machines. They had no tracks or wheels because they did not need to touch the ground. Their anti-gravity systems let them move in any direction at high speed. Their energy shields could stop missiles, bullets, and even small plasma bolts. Their main weapons fired concentrated beams of superheated gas that could cut through any known metal. "Sir," the communications officer called, "we are receiving broadcast requests from 47 different worlds. Everyone wants to watch this battle." "Excellent," Vex Thigh said. "Make sure the signal is clear. I want them to see every detail when we crush these humans." On the other side of the valley, Captain Torres checked his systems one final time. The interior of his M1A3 Abrams tank was filled with screens and controls that hummed with quiet power. Unlike the aliens, Torres was not interested in showing off. He was focused on one thing: winning this fight. "Status report," he said into his radio. "Tank 2 ready," came the first reply. "Tank 3 ready. Tank 4 ready." One by one, All 10 human tanks reported that they were prepared for combat. Their crews had worked through the night to make sure every system was perfect. These were not just any tank crews. They were the best soldiers the colonial fleet had, men and women who had fought in Earth's final wars and lived to tell about it. Torres, Colonel Martinez's voice came through the radio. You are cleared to engage when ready. Copy that, Colonel, Torres replied. He switched to the crew frequency. All right, people, this is what we trained for. Remember these aliens? Think we're primitives. Let's show them how wrong they are. The M1A3 Abrams tanks looked very different from the Zethran hover tanks. Where the alien machines were smooth and curved, the human tanks were angular and blocky. Where the aliens floated gracefully, the humans sat heavily on the ground with thick metal tracks. Where the aliens had energy shields that glowed with blue light, the humans had thick armor that looked like solid metal walls. But Torres knew the truth about his machine. The M1A3 was not primitive. It was the result of over 200 years of tank development by human engineers. Every part had been designed and tested through actual combat. The armor was not just metal, but a complex sandwich of ceramic plates, depleted uranium mesh, and reactive explosive tiles that could defeat any known weapon. The main gun was not just a simple cannon, but a precision instrument that could hit targets at extreme range with perfect accuracy. The rounds it fired were not just metal shells, but advanced penetrators made from the densest materials known to science, accelerated to incredible speeds by electromagnetic coils hidden inside the barrel. Movement detected, his gunner reported. The alien tanks are spreading out into attack formation. Torres looked at his tactical display. The 5 hover tanks were moving apart from each other, trying to surround the human force. It was a classic tactic, but Torres had expected it. The aliens thought they could use their superior speed to get behind the human tanks and attack there. Weak rear armor. All tanks assume defensive positions, Torres ordered. Remember your training. These things can fly, but they still have to aim their weapons. The human tanks moved into a tight formation that gave each one clear fields of fire in all directions. Unlike the aliens, who relied on speed and technology, the humans used tactics that had been proven in hundreds of battles. Vex Thai watched the human formation with amusement. Look how they huddle together like frightened animals, he said to his crew. They know they cannot match our speed, so they try to hide behind each other. Sir, his tactical officer said, their formation is actually quite good. Each tank can support the others, and there are no blind spots. It does not matter, Vex Thai replied. Our plasma cannons can destroy any human tank with a single shot. Their primitive armor cannot stop our weapons. He opened a communication channel to all Zethran tanks. Begin the attack. Show the galaxy the power of the Zethran Empire. The 5 hover tanks accelerated toward the human position. They moved like dancers, spinning and weaving through the air to avoid giving the humans easy targets. Their plasma cannons began to glow brighter as they charged to full power. Torres watched them come and felt a cold calm settle over him. This was the moment he had trained for his entire career. In the tank next to him, he could see other human crews making final preparations. They checked their ammunition loads one more time, made sure their targeting computers were locked onto the fastest-moving targets, and prepared to show these aliens what human engineering could really do. Range 4,000 meters in closing, his gunner reported. Hold fire, Torres ordered. Let them get closer. The Zethran tanks were beautiful to watch as they approached. They moved without any of the bumping or shaking that ground vehicles had to deal with. Their energy shields created ripples in the air around them like heat waves. Their weapons pointed toward the human formation with deadly precision. Sir, Private Chon said, shouldn't we start shooting? Not yet, Torres replied. We only get one chance to surprise them. Make it count. What the aliens did not know was that the human tanks had been secretly upgraded with systems that did not exist in any public records. The targeting computers were not just improved versions of old technology. They were quantum processors that could calculate the exact position of fast-moving targets with perfect accuracy. The armor was not just thick metal. It was smart armor that could adapt to different types of attacks. Most importantly, the ammunition was not just advanced, it was revolutionary. Hidden in the storage compartments of each tank were rounds that used technology the aliens had never seen before. Depleted uranium penetrators that could punch through any material. Railgun rounds that traveled at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Smart shells that could adjust their course in flight to hit moving targets. Range 2,000 meters, the gunner reported. They're starting to split up. Perfect, Torres said. That's exactly what we want them to do. The Zethran hover tanks were now moving in a wide circle around the human formation, trying to attack from multiple directions at once. To Vex Thigh, it looked like the perfect setup for a quick victory. His tanks could hit the humans from all sides while staying too far away for the primitive human guns to reach them. All units, open fire, he commanded. 5 plasma bolts streaked across the valley toward the human tanks. The beams were beautiful and terrible, bright enough to hurt the eyes and hot enough to melt steel in seconds. They struck the human formation with tremendous force, sending up clouds of dust and smoke. When the smoke cleared, Vex Thigh expected to see burning wreckage. Instead, all 10 human tanks were still there, their thick armor blackened but intact. The plasma bolts had not penetrated their defensive systems. Impossible, he whispered, but Torres just smiled and keyed his radio. All tanks, you are cleared. To engage. Show them what we can do. The real battle was about to begin. The plasma bolts had struck the human tanks with the force of small suns, but when the smoke and fire cleared, all 10 M1A3 Abrams tanks were still there. Their armor was scorched and blackened, but not one had been destroyed. Reactive armor. Tiles had exploded outward to dissipate the energy, and thick composite plating had absorbed what remained. Vex Thigh stared at his tactical display in shock. That is impossible, he said to his crew. Our plasma cannons should have melted those primitive machines into puddles. Sir, his gunner replied, their armor appears to be much stronger than we calculated. Then we will hit them again, Vex Thigh snarled. Continuous fire. Do not stop until they are all destroyed. The 5 Zethran hover tanks began circling the human formation like sharks around wounded prey. Their plasma cannons fired again and again, sending bolts of superheated energy across the valley. The air filled with the smell of burning metal and ozone as the attack struck home. But the human tanks did not break. Their crews had trained for this exact situation. They knew their armor could take punishment that would destroy lesser vehicles. More importantly, they knew something the aliens did not. Their weapons were far more dangerous than they appeared. Range 1,500 meters, Torres's gunner reported. I have a clear shot on the lead target. Take it, Torres ordered. Main gun of Torres's tank fired with a sound like thunder. But this was not the simple kinetic round that Vex Thigh expected. Hidden electromagnetic coils in the barrel accelerated a depleted uranium penetrator to incredible speed. The round crossed the distance to the alien hover tank in less than a second. Vex Thigh saw the muzzle flash and laughed. A primitive, kinetic weapon. Our shields will stop it easily. But his laughter died when the round struck his energy shield. Instead of bouncing off harmlessly, the dense uranium penetrator punched through the energy barrier like it was made of paper. The shield flickered and failed in a shower of sparks. Shield failure. His defensive systems officer shouted. The round penetrated our barrier. How? Vexthai demanded. No kinetic weapon should be able to do that. What he did not understand was that human engineers had spent decades studying energy shield technology. They knew that shields worked by deflecting or absorbing energy, but they had trouble dealing with solid objects moving at extremely high speeds. The depleted uranium round from Torres's tank had been moving at over 2 kilometers per second when it hit, fast enough to overwhelm any energy shield ever built. The round continued through the alien tank's hull, punching a neat hole through the armor and destroying critical systems inside. The hover tank began to shake and smoke as its anti-gravity systems failed. "Emergency landing," Vexthai ordered. His tank dropped toward the ground like a stone, landing hard on the valley floor, but the human tanks were not finished. All 10 main guns turned toward the remaining 4 hover tanks and fired almost at the same time. The valley echoed with the sound of thunder as depleted uranium rounds streaked through the air. The second alien tank tried to dodge, but Private Chun's targeting computer tracked its movement perfectly. The quantum processor calculated the exact intercept course, and Chun's shot struck the hover tank dead center. The round punched through both sides of the hull, leaving the alien machine spinning out of control. Impossible. The alien pilot screamed as his tank crashed into the ground. Their targeting systems cannot be that accurate, but they were. Each human tank was equipped with a targeting computer that could track and hit objects moving at any speed within its range. The computers used quantum calculations to predict exactly where fast-moving targets would be when the rounds arrived. To the human gunners, hitting the flying alien tanks was no harder than hitting stationary targets. The third Zethron hover tank tried to use its superior speed to escape. It accelerated to maximum velocity, hoping to get out of range before the humans could fire again. But Torres had expected this. Switched to railgun rounds. He ordered his crew. His gunner loaded a special shell that looked almost identical to the standard depleted uranium penetrators. But hidden inside this round were electromagnetic accelerators that would boost its speed even higher. When Torres's tank fired, the railgun round left the barrel at nearly 3 kilometers per second. Fleeing hover tank never had a chance. The round caught it at maximum range, punching through its energy shield and hull in one devastating impact. The alien tank exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from orbit. 3 down, Torres reported to Colonel Martinez. 2 remaining. The last 2 Zethran tanks tried to coordinate their attack. They approached from opposite directions, hoping to divide the human fire and destroy at least some of the primitive machines. Their plasma cannons fired continuously, filling the air with deadly energy. But the human tanks had one more surprise. As the plasma bolts approached, their smart armor activated. Sensors detected the incoming energy weapons and triggered defensive systems that the aliens knew nothing about. Electromagnetic fields deflected some of the plasma away from critical areas. Ablative coatings vaporized to absorb energy. Reactive armor tiles exploded at precisely the right moments to disrupt the plasma beams. The result was that most of the alien fire was stopped or deflected. A few plasma bolts got through and damaged some human systems, but no tank was destroyed. How are they doing that? Vexthai demanded from his crashed tank. He could see the battle through his sensors, but he could not understand what he was watching. The human tanks should have been destroyed 5 times over by now. His tactical officer checked the sensor readings. "Sir, their armor appears to be adaptive. It is changing its properties to defend against our weapons." "That is impossible. No primitive species could develop such technology." But it was not impossible. Human engineers had spent decades developing smart armor systems that could adapt to different threats. The M1A3 tanks were equipped with the most advanced defensive systems humanity had ever built. The 4th alien tank made a desperate attack run, diving toward the human formation at maximum speed. Its plasma cannon fired constantly as it approached, trying to overwhelm one human tank with concentrated fire. But Captain Torres had been waiting for exactly this kind of attack. As the hover tank dove toward his position, he switched to a special round that human engineers called a smart shell. This ammunition could adjust its course in flight to hit moving targets. Torres fired when the alien tank was still 800 meters away. The smart shell left his gun and immediately began tracking the hover tank's movement. As the alien pilot tried to dodge, the shell adjusted its path to follow. When it finally struck, the impact was devastating. The hover tank's hull cracked open like an egg, spilling its crew onto the ground. Emergency systems activated to keep them alive, but the tank itself was completely destroyed. That left only one Zethran hover tank still fighting. Its pilot realized that he was facing impossible odds, but Zethran military honor demanded that he continue the battle until the end. He made one final attack run, charging directly at Torres's tank, with his plasma cannon firing at maximum power. The energy beams struck the human tank again and again, but the smart armor absorbed most of the damage. Torres waited until the alien tank was only 300 meters away before firing his last round. This one was a simple depleted uranium penetrator, but it was more than enough. The round struck the hover tank's power core directly, causing a massive explosion that lit up the entire valley. When the smoke cleared, all 5 Zethran hover tanks were destroyed or disabled. The mighty machines that had seemed so superior lay broken on the ground like fallen angels. In contrast, all 10 human tanks were still operational, their crews already reloading for another battle if needed. Vexthai climbed out of his crashed tank and looked across the valley at the human machines. They sat there like metal mountains, their guns still pointing in his direction. Steam rose from their barrels, and their armor was blackened by plasma fire. But they had won a complete victory. For the first time in his life, the Zethran War Commander understood what it meant to face a species that had turned warfare into a science. The silence that followed the battle was broken only by the sound of cooling metal and the distant hum of human tank engines. Smoke drifted across the valley from the wreckage of 5 Zethran hover tanks, their advanced technology reduced, twisted metal and scattered debris. War Commander Vexthai stood beside his ruined command tank, his 4 arms hanging at his sides in defeat. Around him, his surviving crew members stared in shock at the human machines that had destroyed their supposedly superior forces. The M1A3 Abrams tanks sat in perfect formation, their guns still trained on the alien survivors. "Sir," Torres's voice came through the battlefield communication system. "Do you surrender?" Vexthai looked up at the human tank that had spoken. Steam rose from its main gun barrel, and scorch marks covered its thick armor, but the machine looked as dangerous as ever. He realized that he had made the greatest mistake of his military career. He had underestimated an enemy based on how their technology looked rather than how it performed. "I surrender," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Then, louder, "The Zethran Empire surrenders this engagement." Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the broadcast in stunned silence. They had expected to see primitive human technology destroyed by advanced Zethran weapons. Instead, they had witnessed the complete opposite. Human tanks had crushed alien hover tanks without losing a single vehicle. Colonel Martinez's voice came over the communication channel. "War Commander Vexthai, according to the terms you proposed, your fleet will now leave this system and never return." "Yes," Vexthai replied. "We will honor our agreement." But he knew the implications went far beyond this single battle. Word of the human victory would spread through every corner of the galaxy. The Zethran Empire's reputation for invincibility was broken. Other species would now question whether advanced technology always meant superior military power. Captain Torres climbed out of his tank and walked across the battlefield toward the alien commander. His thick boots crunched on the burned ground as he approached. When he reached Vex's thigh, he stopped and studied the defeated alien with the eyes of a professional soldier. "Your hover tanks were impressive machines," Torres said. "Fast, maneuverable, well-armed. But not good enough," Vex's thigh replied bitterly. "No," Torres agreed. "They weren't. Do you want to know why?" Vex's thigh looked at the human with curiosity. "Yes," Torres pointed to his tank. "You looked at our machines and saw primitive technology. Tracks instead of anti-gravity. Kinetic weapons instead of energy beams. Heavy armor instead of energy shields. You thought we were using ancient, outdated systems. Were we wrong?" Vex's thigh asked. "Completely wrong," Torres said. "Our tanks don't use anti-gravity because we don't need it. Tracks give us stability and reliability that flying systems can't match. Our kinetic weapons don't look as impressive as your plasma cannons, but they deliver more actual destructive power to the target. Our armor doesn't glow like your energy shields, but it can stop any weapon you have." Vex's thigh considered this. "But your technology appears so much simpler than ours." "That's because you mistake complexity for effectiveness," Torres explained. "Humans have learned that the best military technology is not always the most advanced technology. It's the technology that works when you need it to work, under any conditions, against any enemy." Torres walked to one of the destroyed hover tanks and examined the wreckage. "Your machines are beautiful and sophisticated, but they depend on complex systems that can fail. When our rounds penetrated your energy shields, your entire defensive system collapsed. When your anti-gravity failed, your tanks fell out of the sky." He returned to stand in front of Vex's thigh. "Our tanks are built differently. Every system has backups. Every component is tested under extreme conditions. Our weapons are designed to penetrate any defense. Our armor is designed to stop any attack. We don't build elegant machines, we build effective ones." The alien commander looked around at the human tanks again, seeing them with new understanding. What he had mistaken for primitive simplicity was actually sophisticated engineering designed for maximum effectiveness. The humans had not built their tanks to look impressive. They had built them to win battles. "There is something else you should understand," Torres continued. "Every human tank crew trains for years before they are considered ready for combat. We study enemy tactics. We practice shooting at moving targets. We learn to work together. As a team, your technology is advanced, but our people are professionals." Vex's thigh nodded slowly. "We underestimated your species?" "Yes, you did, and that's a mistake you won't make again." Colonel Martinez arrived at the battlefield as medical teams helped the injured alien crew members. She watched the rescue efforts with the professional calm of an experienced military officer, but inside she felt a deep satisfaction. Her people had been challenged by a superior alien force and had proven themselves worthy of respect. "Colonel," her communication officer reported, "we're receiving messages from Earth Command. Admiral Chun wants to speak with you personally." "Put him through," Martinez ordered. Admiral Chun's face appeared on her portable communication screen. "Colonel Martinez, congratulations on a remarkable victory. The entire colonial fleet is proud of your performance." "Thank you, sir. Credit goes to Captain Torres and his tank crews. They executed the battle perfectly. I'm sure they did. But you should know that this battle has implications far beyond your colony. We're already receiving communication requests from a dozen alien species who want to establish diplomatic relations with humanity." Martinez looked across the battlefield at the destroyed alien tanks. "I think word is spreading quickly." "It is. The Zethran Empire has been the dominant military power in this region for thousands of years. Your victory over their forces proves that humanity can defend itself against any threat. What are your orders, sir? Continue building your colony. We're sending reinforcements and supplies. This world is now officially a full member of the United Earth Colonial Federation. You've earned it. As the communication ended, Martinez walked among her tank crews. They were performing maintenance on their vehicles, checking systems, and reloading ammunition. To them, this had been just another day at work. They had done their jobs with professional skill and had won a decisive victory. But Martinez knew that this battle would be remembered for generations. It was the day that humanity announced its presence to the galaxy, not as primitive newcomers, but as equals who could stand against any challenge. Or Commander Vex Thai was allowed to return to his fleet in orbit. As his shuttle lifted off from the planet's surface, he looked down at the human colony growing in the alien landscape. The humans were already back to work, building homes and farms as if nothing had happened. "Sir," his pilot asked, "what will you tell the Empire about this defeat?" "The truth," Vex Thai replied, "that we encountered a species that builds simple, effective weapons operated by highly trained professionals. That advanced technology means nothing if you cannot use it properly. That humans are not primitive, they are practical." He paused and looked at the tactical recordings of the battle, and that the galaxy now has a new military power that should be treated with respect. The Zethran fleet departed from the Kepler 442 system as promised, but they carried with them a message that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity had proven that they could stand against any enemy and win through superior engineering, training, and tactics. The age of human expansion among the stars had truly begun.